Hey there, folks. I'm just your average Joe from the Big Apple, you know? It's about this thing called CPS, Child Protective Services. Now, don't get me wrong, they're supposed to be the good guys, right? But what if I told you that sometimes they might be overstepping their bounds? Let me paint you a picture. Imagine a happy family, just like yours maybe. They're sitting down for dinner when suddenly, knock knock, CPS is at the door. Now here's where things get tricky. Did you know that without a warrant, they can't just barge in and take your kids? And it doesn't stop there, folks. There's a whole list of constitutional rights that might be getting trampled on, like the right to due process, or the right to parent your children without government interference. Pretty important stuff, huh? Now, I'm not saying CPS is all bad. They do important work. But when they overstep, it can tear families apart. And let me tell you, it happens more often than you'd think. Families across America are facing this every day. It's not just about one or two cases. We're talking about a systemic issue that needs addressing. So what can we do? Well, for starters, we gotta educate ourselves. Know your rights, folks. And if you see something that doesn't seem right, speak up. We're all in this together after all. It's time we start asking the tough questions. How can we ensure CPS is held accountable? What checks and balances are in place, and are they really working? Remember, it's about protecting our kids and our rights. We can do both, can't we? So let's work together to make the system better. This is your average Joe from New York signing off. Stay savvy, America.
Came with force, ripped us apart, no reason. Stripping our lives, committing treason. They got no soul, laws bending, they're breaking. Down the barrel of injustice, we're aching. Stand up, heads high, screaming tonight. Rights ain't paper, they burn but fight. Chains of their greed won't hold us long. Through their lies, we'll prove them wrong. Choke kick, that trail money's their god. Corruption runs deep where justice is fraud. Kids torn like roots from the ground. In this storm, our voice is loud. Steel drums clash, lightning fills the air. Won't sit silent, breathe despair. Tide's turning, we bring the flame. Burn their system, break the game. Stand up, heads high, screaming tonight. Rights ain't paper, they burn but fight. Chains of their greed won't hold us long. Through their lies, we'll prove them wrong. Constitution bleeding, pages unfurled. Freedom crushed by their darkened world. We're warriors, we're writing a new creed. No backing down, planting the seed. Stand up, heads high, screaming tonight. Rights ain't paper, they burn but fight. Chains of their greed won't hold us long. Through their lies, we'll prove them wrong. Constitution bleeding, pages unfurled. Freedom crushed by the darkened world. We're warriors, we're writing a new creed. No backing down, planting the seed. Constitution bleeding, pages unfurled. Freedom crushed by the darkened world. We're warriors, we're writing a new creed. No backing down, planting the seed.
All right, everybody, this is CPS Punisher. This is Monday night. It is 11 o'clock, so we're doing the late night version. And, yeah, we're doing a little bit different here. I'm going down these news headlines here, and it's pretty crazy. All of a sudden, everybody's coming out of the woodwork saying that they're going to do reform, and they're going to do this, and they're going to do that, and they're going to do this. No one's doing anything. They're just trying to save their jobs. They're trying to make it like they're giving a shit about what's going on. It's pretty disgusting actually to watch this and see that they're all trying to come to the rescue and like here's some of the headlines here. Child Welfare Subcommittee to address flaws in Child Protective Services. Shining a spotlight on Child Abuse Prevention Month. An iconic welcome to fabulous Las Vegas sign. Well, isn't that fun that they're having their little does that even make any sense? You're going to have Child Abuse Prevention Month in Las Vegas. That's perfect. That's wonderful. At least they'll have a good time spending our tax dollars there. A new way forward on children's mental health. Texas lawmakers consider ICWA for all bill affecting child removals. That's cool. Here we go. Child welfare leaders stunned by Trump's call to freeze social services spending. That's going back in a little bit here. April 21st. Reps Regas and Meeman pressed DHHS in the Child Welfare Subcommittee. Ossoff introduces bill that would reward states for recording Child Protective Services interviews. These guys are all just running to, let's see, Child Protective Services seeks safe county workspaces as funding needs mount. Here we go. The blame and shame cycle in child welfare needs to end. Child welfare reckons with the harm of investigations. I mean, this is just going on and on and on. But they try to keep putting in these little, they're scared of their caseworkers. The caseworkers are scared. They're nervous. Well, they should be freaking nervous, man. The way that they treat us as parents and the way that they treat us as anything, they should be freaking scared. I mean, how long have they been waiting for people to just start snapping? You're stealing our freaking kids, man. What do they expect people to do? Just sit by and just let it happen? Especially when you've done nothing wrong. How many of you out there that are watching this show are sitting there going, you didn't even do anything. Like you had nothing to do. What happened to you had nothing to do with your child. I mean, because let's be straight here. All of us had something to do. Something happened. We don't just, Child Protective Services didn't just show up at our house, right? Then just, something took place. Now, whether you did something, whether you didn't do it or whatever, that doesn't matter, but something took place. But how many of you did something that had nothing to do with your child, or, you got a speeding ticket or you got, some interaction with the cops because maybe you shoplifted or whatever you did. I'm just saying that, it had nothing to do with the police whatsoever, but yet Child Protective Services is coming to the aid and saying, oh, this is how does that even matter? There's so much case law that states that, how can it be child neglect if it had nothing to do with your child, period? Or how can it be child abuse if your child wasn't involved? And how can Child Protective Services even get involved with something like that? It makes no sense. None whatsoever. Zip, zero, zilch, man. And, this is the stuff that we got to start paying attention to because, if we don't stop this now, like we're trying to, we're not going to be able to stop it ever. Because this is our time. We got Gunner right here with us. What's up, Gunner?
What's going on?
No, we're just going down the list of news here. And, it's all just blame game stuff. The only thing that I see that even is remotely anything is the Child Welfare Subcommittee to address flaws in Child Protective Services. So
a lot of states are passing a lot of different things, proposal getting ready to hit the floor. Texas is doing some more. I think Illinois is getting ready to pass a few things. Florida's got a few things that are kicking around, being introduced on the state floor. Um, yeah, I mean, there's a few states, like I said, trying to salvage a program that it's bottom line, it just needs to be abolished. There's no saving this program, and
No.
it's yeah.
I
It's
mean, all
not.
of these people are so freaking dirty and so corrupt. How do you even attempt to try to save that? Like,
You don't because
what are you gonna do? You're gonna have all these dirty people come in and start all over? No,
well,
they're
I
all
had
money.
that same conversation with people when Texas did a lot of the law changes with changing the fact that law enforcement is now going to take and lead the way with a lot of things in Texas. What does that do for all the people that were doing the criminal stuff? Because it was brought up of the biggest complaint that CPS had nationally was no warrant or no quarter or nothing coming in the house. Well, if you understand, like we covered Sunday with fruit from a poisonous tree, the case shouldn't go any further. If you've got an illegal entry, a constitutional rights violation, there is no case that it's thrown out under fruit from a
Mhm.
poisonous tree doctrine, and that's an absolute. But when you have corruption of um, judges and magistrates, that are making money and profit off of these things, that we get you to the point of tie you up, and then like some people, then they go into child support, and then some of those administrative fees in a lot of states go towards the judges' retirement funds. So now they are incentivized to actually take and adjudicate under the way that actually financially benefits them. But
Mhm.
then you look at a system that who do you go to when you complain about, the GALs, the CPS attorney and this and that. Who do they end up you file with the Board of Accountability, and those people that end up taking and doing it are the same judges and magistrates that they're in the same fucking courtroom. Now the judges and magistrates, when you have a judicial complaint, it gets escalate. It goes beyond a local level of your county, and it actually goes into the state Supreme Court, and then there's a series of those, and it's kind of contradicting in the fact that when you become a judge or magistrate, what is the number one rule you do with it? You have to remove yourself from the bar card, from the
Yeah.
bar, turn over your card, or it's in a suspended, not really suspended, but I don't want to use the word suspended, but it kind of floats out there. In other words, they retain it, they hold your
Yeah.
card.
Shelf. Put on the shelf, like.
Yeah, it's put on the shelf, but at the same time, these same judges and magistrates are still actively involved in the bar,
Mhm.
and that's where the corruption is in every state. Of they're investigating and weighing things of this and that, and then it becomes a popularity contest. It becomes a what lawyers they like and which ones they don't, and they'll dismiss cases for attorneys that they like or anything else, and bury their very obvious um, ineffective counsel, or several other charges that go against some of these attorneys. Well, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. I mean, I know that happened in my state, and that's going to be one of the things of that will definitely be brought out. Is here's my filings of these particular things, and upon review, nothing was found wrong. How can you not see that a Fourth Amendment violation, let alone it's on the record and addressed with a magistrate or a judge turning around saying stuff like, um, and not even following the judicial rules. Now, listen, there's judicial rules that say if there's constitutional issues or something brought up in the case that brings things separate, your case is supposed to stop, and they're supposed to have a separate hearing on it. Or if you have a constitutional rights violation, obviously they've lost jurisdiction, but they hold on to it, and nobody holds them accountable. Technically, if there's a Fourth Amendment, if there's a constitutional rights violation when you're getting in there, the court doesn't even have the authority to continue on the state level. That a change of jurisdiction is supposed to be done. The judge or the magistrate is supposed to step aside, address the court that I cannot go further with this case. We can't do anything in this because we have constitutional issues to deal with. Therefore, you have so many days to go ahead and file this and do your change of jurisdiction, but I cannot hear this case. I cannot move forward. And they're not doing that. They're moving on. They're breaking their own judicial rules of conduct. Um, that's very clear, to where it should go onto on your cover sheet form. That would be a change of jurisdiction, checking the box for that. It'd be
Mhm.
under civil rights. So when you have constitutional rights issues, and then you would go under civil rights questions, and then
Mhm.
you would ask the judge appropriately. For an example, if there was a Fourth Amendment violation and nothing has been presented, and that's how you have to word it specifically. No warrant was shown, no court order was declared, there was no imminent danger put on record and/or justified, which is required to be on there to go through there. And if that has happened and that evidence is not put in there, and you have an illegal entry, and then you ask the court, does not fruit from a poisonous tree take and apply, and hence the case should be dismissed because this is where everything started. And of course, people say, well, I had a lawyer. Yeah, but a lot of your lawyers, and that's part of the trick that the bar uses and your states use, is your family attorneys. They only hold a state license um, for private use. Now, if you're doing like GALs and this and that, you got to have both licenses for both private and public. But a lot of people don't understand the licensing part for attorneys, and if they don't hold a federal license to practice in federal court, what are they going to do? And which is what it's designed to do. They're going to keep you in the state court and keep doing the appeals and keep doing the bullshit and this and that and draining your fucking money. When if you've got a Fourth Amendment violation, it should be as simple as, we can't deal with it, file the particular things yourself, or even telling and advising your client, if you are that attorney, to file pro se sui juris and at least walk them through what they can do, because it is legal advice, and say you have every right to do this, or giving them the proper the proper advice that they should be giving, which essentially leads down to ineffective counsel. And that would throw their whole system off if all of that, and that's one of the things that we're moving forward to expose is that's exactly what it is. And when you have attorneys that are willing to testify that you're right, I can't do that. The judges are not doing their job. They're not adjudicating under the Constitution. It is a sad thing that we even have to go to the higher court.
Yeah, because the Sixth Amendment says that the lower judges are bound by the Constitution.
Mhm.
It says that very clear, and it says that the Constitution supersedes everything. So every judge is supposed to be adjudicating with the Constitution and the federal statutes and the federal laws in mind, because that's the way it goes. It goes
They're superior to your state
code,
code.
then it goes, and then it goes federal, and then it
Yep.
goes state, and then it goes from there. And those are the way that that's the lineup, folks. And if your judges aren't following the rules, if they're going out of the box saying that they don't rule on the Constitution or they don't this and they don't do that, then they're number one, they're lying to you, because their oath of office
It's
says
the Constitution.
right.
That's-
And what's the penalty for that?
Death.
Right.
So
You know,
yeah.
so
But once
this
again, what was the last time we ever had on record that was publicly known that people were executed? I mean, we're now finding out from the Trump administration that even Joe Biden was executed at Guantanamo Bay
mhm,
in
that's
2020.
what they say. That's
I
the
mean,
rumor on the street.
All the science and all the cloning and everything else. You got to understand, man. Back in my day, what was it, like 83, 84, Darren, when they first cloned that first sheep over in
over in Ireland or something, right?
Ireland or
Scotland.
some shit like that. That they had that cloning technology, and they were not supposed to be doing it on humans. As a matter of fact, it's against the United Nations and against the World Court to actually do that. There was actually international law passed on that.
Mhm.
But once again, these people, and once again, the deep state, the cabal, there's many different factions of people that come in here to overtake. I mean, you got to understand, they hate us. You've got the People's Republic of China. You've got the Muslim religion in itself. You have a certain sect that lines up with the Jewish people that are very similar to extremists. When I say the Jewish people say, oh, well, that's anti-Semitism. No, it is very well documented. There are people in Judaism that actually do not believe, and they believe very similar, of purity in the Jewish culture, and anything outside of that is considered unclean or unfit and below them. And it's the same thing with the Muslims, that they have the same thing. Once again, that those two religions go so far back with a lot of things. Now, understanding that some of the other beliefs and stuff like that weren't till later. The belief in Muhammad and the Muslims was actually later, and a lot of it was a spin-off of Judaism and Christianity. But once again, even here in America, we've been fooled, because look who owns the rights to these Bibles and everything else. And it always cracks me up that I could call you David all day long. Hey David, and then there's power in a name, right? There's a power that comes with that. I could call you Derek or this and that, and you turn around, who the hell are you talking to? Well, and here's the thing: everybody goes, "Well, I believe in Jesus, and I do," and they go around. I'm like, you realize you're worshiping a false god or a false Messiah? And they go, "Well, wait, what do you mean?" And let me explain. There is no J sound in Hebrew, so how can you take and have one for Jesus when there's no J sound? It doesn't even exist. It's very similar to the name of Joshua, which is Yeshua. But you have to understand, you have to observe those things as well. He knows what we're talking about type bullshit. That argument, no, because it was very well addressed within those things. As far as religion, is that there's power in the name, knowing the name of this. If you go in down the demonology, you can go in, there's power in knowing the names of the demons. And there's a lot that goes into that a lot of people don't understand.
I just want to show this, guys. This is what he was just talking about right here. Trump amplifies another outlandish conspiracy theory that Biden is a robotic clone. This is the article right here from the New York Times. So that wasn't, he didn't just come off of his mouth just saying that stuff. Here's the news article. You can actually listen to the article. President Trump shared an outlandish conspiracy theory on social media on Saturday night, saying former President Joe Biden had been executed in 2020 and replaced by a robotic clone. The latest example of the president amplifying dark, false material to his millions of followers.
Didn't I say something about that with that and Hillary Clinton and Fauci and all that stuff? Probably, way back when, that I was talking about all that stuff, that, hey, they got this, that Trump turned over the nation to the military, and he never had control.
I have videos from my Facebook stuff when Trump won his 2016 election against Hillary, and I was calling him out then, saying that Hillary was a clone then. With all of the things that were going on, like there was either something wrong with her or she was sick or something. But I mean, here it is right here, guys. This is you can get it right here at the New York Times. I'll put a thing up in the chat so you guys can check it out yourselves. So this isn't just some outlandish, Gunner's just throwing this out here, and
guys, there's a lot of stuff moving fast, and you got to understand, there's some of us out here that have been, listen, even from way back when we was a kid, of the whole question of one person took out Kennedy, JFK, and there was just too much that didn't make sense, and there was a lot of video footage and a lot of other things that we just didn't have access to, and there was no transparency, and it smelled of cover up. It smelled of a bunch of other stuff. There was a lot of things that didn't make sense, that you could see a lot where CIA was doing a lot of things. We knew about MK Ultra that was going on. I mean, that was known even back during Vietnam era. I mean, they were even testing stuff on vets in Vietnam. I mean, LSD and all those other things. I mean, and here's the other one that cracks me up that people don't realize, and you need to look up the history. And yes, this is on the Library of Congress. You can look it up under the bill that made marijuana illegal. The Democratic senator actually made the excuse that spearheaded this particular bill to pass to make marijuana illegal, that literally says on the congressional record, that says, we have got to stop these niggers and spics from knocking up our white women and using this drug to do it. And that was the excuse that got it through. On top of the fact of Big Pharma, of the medical benefits that now we have seen in our lifetime, where, California's been doing a lot, Maine's been doing a lot, but the amount of medicines they've been deriving from it, curing some of the, helping with the PTSD and a lot of other things, that these other medicines were not helping people. And here's the whole thing it comes down to, and this is where Big Pharma comes in, is because you cannot patent something that is found in nature. You cannot make a patent.
Well, they can't tax it either, right? They can't tax it either, right?
None of it. That's why your vitamin and supplement aisle is off where it is. But then you have to go, well, then they have the whole thing, well, that was created in a bad lab or an unclean lab or some of these other things. But then the thing that pushed a lot of those natural supplements, believe it or not, was, and this was done because of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Lou Ferrigno and a lot of the Flex Wheeler and a lot of those bodybuilders that took a lot of these natural supplements, that they were getting them from clean labs. One of the older labs was known as Twin Labs. If you're a little bit older, that was one of the better, more natural, cleaner labs. They're even going to that for like the oils that are coming out now. Just because you buy something at a store that says lavender or something, that you have to watch what's actually in those things and their purity and where you're getting it from. And there's a lot that goes into that. Now, Sharon's very much into those and does a lot of research with them, but you've got to watch some of that stuff because they add stuff to it. And people, oh, well, I'll put it in this little diffuser and that. No, they add stuff to that. Now you're breathing in those poisons. They're not true, all natural, organic, no pesticides, no anything. I mean, just, concentrated in the oil. And let me tell you something, man, those oils are not just for just the medicinal purposes. I mean, the oils that you can get for that are great to cook with, man. The oregano, especially, just a little bit that you can put in there. If you're a bourbon guy like I am, and I don't drink as much, as I used to enjoy as much because of my condition, my medicine, I like a glass every now and again. But you would get orange oil, and it was so potent. You just put a toothpick in the end of the thing, shook the bottle a little bit. You had your bourbon on the rocks. I like mine on the rocks, and you would stir that toothpick in, and it was so strong, and you were making an old fashioned. But it had a great taste to it, but it was extremely concentrated. Let alone finding out other oils like lemon oils and this and other things that are natural cleaners. You don't need a disinfectant or anything else. Do you realize you can buy a lemon, cut it in half, and clean all your stuff with lemon juice, and it disinfects and kills everything better than Lysol? But you don't make any money off of it. How much do you pay for a can of Lysol compared to like lemon spray or some of these other things that are out there? I mean, but they don't want you to have that. They don't want us healthy because they can't make a profit off of it.
Yep.
And then the other thing is, we go to this, everybody, switch. We don't always grow our own foods as much as we do. Everybody has that thought, well, the grocery store will never run out. Well, we found out that wasn't true during COVID, didn't we? Toilet paper.
We all had toilet paper. There's plenty of toilet paper for everybody.
Oh yeah, all sorts of stuff. I mean, there was people buying out Costco's and Sam's Clubs and on Facebook just pimping this shit out and making a killing. And they eventually got caught with a lot of it. But there was a lot of those things that, people freaked out, overbought, never thought it was. But here's the other thing. We're still touching, even though it's been to the, we'll say, butcher, ground beef, steaks, chicken, pork, all that other stuff, you're still consuming those particular animals and everything. It's still handled. It's still raw meat.
Oh, and it's still stuff that they're dropping from the skies on us. I mean, there's that too. Like these animals are still running around out eating that stuff out in the fields that the government's putting into the field.
How many times when you were growing up that you had something that did a cleanse? And I mean, and this is a big thing. This is why the Amish don't get sick. They do a cycle, and they do it with a moon cycle. Why? Because they have figured out and known, just like the Farmer's Almanac and a lot of other things, parasites and worms and those other things are based off of the moon cycle, not under the sun cycle. In other words, when there's a full moon, that's when they start hatching and having eggs and all sorts of other stuff. That's why you have to take it during a certain cycle. But they had those things. Even though we're not out there farming, we're still consuming those meats. But how many times does your doctor say, hey, most of your health problems deal with when was the last time you did a parasite and worm cleanse? And they don't. Here, take a pill for this. Here, take this. And then come to find out even colon polyps are actually worm sacs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, colon cancer. It's an overgrowth of a bunch of worms in your intestines. And I know that's gross, but can you imagine one simple drink that you would do once a year to cleanse your body and how much healthier you would take and be that they hid that from us? And then they slide in the dyes and the other additives and the chemical, like you said. And no wonder we're so damn sick and we've got cancers and all this.
Yeah, we're the only country in the world that really people are dying of cancer. I just heard a study today that for being the richest country in the world, we come 37th in the rank of health, and that makes some third world countries are better off in their health than we are here. And that's just crazy to think that with the country that's the richest, the number one country in the free world, all of this stuff, and our people are having a more time with their health problems than they are with just living. You know,
we're the most over-medicated country in the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
We consume more big pharma, petroleum-based medicines than any other country in the world. And that's what RFK has been working on and sorting through and just saying, this has got to stop, let alone they've exposed in combination. I think I was reading something the other day with Kash Patel. They were talking about doing an investigation into Congress, and I forgot how many exact number it was, but it was a disgusting number of senators and House of Representatives on the federal level, let alone the state level. I mean, they didn't even go into the state level of how many people were bought and paid for basically by big pharma companies to vote to benefit them. And that's where, in my personal opinion, I believe lobbying should be completely just gone completely of anything. You're more than welcome to pitch your whatever to whatever people for a bill you've got going. But when you start giving away houses and other things, that's like there was one, I was just reading another article the other day that George Soros had bought a villa in Italy and gave it to a Democratic judge, federal judge. And because it didn't happen on U.S. soil, it's kind of untouchable, and there ain't anything you do because it was an international transaction. And, you know, that's the whole thing. We've got to start closing these loopholes. This shit's just got to stop because they're not representing the people. They're representing the corporations and big businesses and this and that. And
well, they're representing themselves and their families, making sure that their family lines stay in line with the stuff and not ours. I mean, that's why CPS, for instance, you know, like that's what's going on with them. You know, like they're making sure that, you know, and I'm just reading this stuff about the orphan trains. You know, for 75 years, they took the homeless kids in New York City and then threw them out west to these people, these farms, and all of this stuff that needed, you know, help with labor and all this stuff. They did it for 75 years, and it was the same damn thing that they're doing today, except for they're not doing it under the child labor laws anymore. You know, like because before they were literally taking these homeless children and then saying, look, we're bringing them out to Nebraska or out to Texas or bringing them out there so that they can work in these farms. And these farms don't need as much work now. So they started slowing down with the, you know, the rate of the kids that were taken from New York. But now, get this, there's more homeless children in New York right now than there was in the 1870s when they were doing this orphan train thing. So, I mean, what does that tell you? You know what I mean? Like, so, and they're not taking those kids. They don't take the homeless kids in New York. They take the ones that are stronger, that have, you know, better family line. They're more adoptable. They're all of that. You know, why is there this many homeless kids in New York? If CPS is doing their jobs, there wouldn't be this many homeless kids in New York, correct? I mean, doesn't that make sense? But why is there so many homeless kids in New York? Because CPS doesn't take them.
Because there's no
one wants to buy the homeless kids. No one's buying the broken kids.
Spend the money in the court systems. That'll pay the court fees and go hire the attorneys and go do this and go do that and pay for all the little services they recommend to you. And they, you know, they keep dragging people along. I hear that all the time. You know, well, I'm not going to do this or that because I'm getting ready to get my kids back. I'm completing all their programs. And As soon as I'm done, I'm going to get my kid back. I go, no, I think you better wake the hell up, because that is
Mhm.
not what's going to happen. They're going to get you
Mhm.
to that point, and there's going to be something there, and then you're going to go into TPR, and then they're going to
Mhm.
have meetings, and they're going to want to put you in places, and then you're going to sit down with an adoption agency, because they make more money off an adoption or a
Mhm.
placement than they do for reunification. And the
Right.
recent reports are saying that only less than 13% of cases nationally are focused on reunification.
Yeah, they only have it. Well, when we did it last year on the show, we came up with 12%. We got a 12% reunification rate. That's what we got in this country.
Yeah.
So, and all you have to do is the math. It's very simple. Just take the amount of kids that they have, the amount of adoptions they did, and then what you can't forget is that these numbers keep compounding. So it's not like 500,000 kids just came through and that's what's sitting in the system. They keep
Yeah.
being 500,000, 500,000, and 500,000, and 500,000. But this is the question: why is it that there's still so many homeless kids if CPS is doing their job? Because there's plenty of families out there. There's plenty of places that will take them, or maybe there isn't. But there still shouldn't be this many homeless kids. There shouldn't be. You know
No.
what I mean? If they were directly taking the homeless kids back then because these kids were very much impoverished. They were hoping to get a new life, a new chance because they were living on the streets and stuff. But you don't see CPS workers going to these tent cities and these homeless camps and all of this stuff getting these kids. Why? Because they're not going to take these kids. No one's going to adopt these kids. They're broken. And I hate to sound like a mean, cruel person, but that's a fact. All these people want to do is they want to get a perfect little child that's already been potty trained, that has a good background, and that has, like their family is, like they weren't alcoholics, they weren't drug users, they weren't any of these things. They're going to lie about what they say that you were. I mean, that's what they're telling everybody is, right? Everybody's a drug user now.
Right.
I mean, everybody's a drug user so much that they're sitting there saying, we're going to stop all these tests.
Constantly.
You know?
About the story of the parents and everything else. I mean, there's several of them. I mean, even there was conversations that I've had with several people of like, Mom, why did you give me up? Or why did I didn't? You were stolen from me, and that's not the truth. Or that wasn't what was going on. There was nothing, and they came in and here this goes with the Department of Education. A lot of other thing is not knowing our rights, because here's the thing, guys. And I'm going to be bluntly honest, and this is constitutionally sound, and they're covering it up in the states too. But if you knew your rights, when that caseworker pushed their way in the house or did anything else, you have the right to defend your home under the Fourth Amendment with your Second Amendment. And I hate to put it plainly, splatter their fucking brains all over the fucking place. It's an illegal entry. You lost your immunity, you lost your protection, and everything else when you entered without a warrant. And you should be
able to force your way into my home and threaten my family. You're absolutely right.
Why did you take and shoot them? Or why this? Because they entered my home. Where was the body? Inside the home. Where was the brain splatter and everything else? Inside the home. Show me the word, or
wasn't from behind.
And they give you the bullshit. Well, it's digital now. No, that doesn't work. You must have a piece of paper in hand, signed by the judge, not auto pen, recorded by the clerk's office with a
wet ink signature,
and the signature by the clerk.
Wet ink, meaning that it's just freshly signed. You can't have a warrant that's been signed 8 days ago, which they're greatly guilty of doing. Like you're under imminent danger. You're under imminent danger. Then why does this warrant that you have for me right here? Why was this signed 2 weeks ago? If my kid was in imminent danger, which imminent danger means right now they're going to die if we don't change something right this second. This means that we don't have time to go to court. This means we don't have time to do anything. We need to go and get that kid. Then why is it under imminent danger circumstances did you wait 8 days or 2 weeks or any of these amount of days to come and get my kid?
Well,
makes no sense.
I heard a post the other day of one state CPS worker that was arguing with somebody about this, that they have 72 hours to file anything. They can come in your house and take your kid without any of that. But they have, under state policies and procedures, they have up to 72 hours to take and file for that thing. I go, the Constitution says otherwise, and the Constitution doesn't change. And that goes back to our original conversation. The Constitution is this: you all must follow this. And if you've got policies and procedures that contradict federal case law, federal statutes, and codes, and or the Constitution itself, it is null and void. It is not
Mm-hmm.
even supposed to. And there was like people that one guy in Chicago, I think, that stabbed to death a caseworker that came in after his kids, and I can guarantee you that whole crooked system goes. Did somebody provide the warrant or court order because it wasn't there? Because if you don't have it, that was a breaking and entering by a criminal. Bottom
Mm-hmm.
line. But once again, the system's so broken that they don't even follow the Constitution. But once again, they've dumbed everybody down. Well, we don't need that. And like we've covered before, even the state of Tennessee has turned around and said they have a right to enter your home and question your children, and blatantly says, and your consent or permission is not needed. But federal case law and the Fourth Amendment says completely otherwise.
Right. I want, you know what? I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna play this video here. This is it's 6 minutes, but this is worth it. This is so when you guys are in there and you're talking about this stuff, what we're talking about, the landmark case law that this comes from is what's called Marbury versus Madison.
Yep.
All right, and you guys need to listen to this because this explains every bit. Yeah, share is here.
1903, which is arguably the most significant case in Supreme Court history. So if you're ready to get them brain cows milked judicial review style, well then let's get to it. So as always, let's begin with the facts of the case. Remember that the first two political parties to emerge in our fair nation were the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans, and they fought bitterly on just about every issue available to fight about. And as it turned out, the Federalist President John Adams lost the election of 1800 to Democratic Republican candidate Thomas Jefferson. And that was a bitter loss for the Federalists, but Adams hatched a plan to try to dilute the power and influence of the Democratic Republicans once Jefferson took office. The Federalist-dominated Congress created a slew of new courts and judgeships, and as you probably remember, it is the president who's constitutionally responsible for appointing federal judges. So Adams, in his last days as president, packed the federal judiciary full of Federalist judges who would likely frustrate Jefferson's policy agenda during his presidency. And that's why they call him Old Sneaky Adams. They didn't. Don't write that down. Anyway, Adams was signing commissions for these judges right up until the moment he left office, and most of them were delivered, but a few of them were not. And when Jefferson took office, he ordered his Secretary of State to leave those undelivered commissions undelivered. Well, that really chapped the thighs of a guy named William Marbury, who was one of those judges who had been appointed but had not yet received his commission. And so he sued Madison in the Supreme Court to get his commission by what's known as a writ of mandamus, which is just a court order for an official to do what they're legally required to do. So Marbury wanted the court to issue a writ of mandamus in order for Madison to deliver the commission. Okay, now let's talk about the constitutional principle at stake in this case. Now, what I'm about to tell you is not going to sound relevant to this case, so you're just gonna have to stick with me here. The constitutional principle at stake in this case is the jurisdiction clauses in Article 3 of the Constitution. Now remember, Article 3 is all about the judicial branch and how it gets its power and what kinds of cases it can hear. Jurisdiction means the scope of power the court exercises over those different kinds of cases. So Article 3 states that the Supreme Court has both original jurisdiction and appellate jurisdiction. Original jurisdiction means the court has power to hear certain cases for the first time. Appellate jurisdiction means that the court has power to hear appeals from lower federal courts in other cases. Now, I'm not slinging vocabulary around just for funsies. You really have to understand jurisdiction to understand this case. Now, according to Article 3 of the Constitution, there are only a narrow set of circumstances which the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction over, and they are as follows. In all cases affecting ambassadors, other public ministers, and consuls, and those in which a state shall be party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. So, the Supreme Court only has original jurisdiction in cases involving states or foreign ambassadors or consuls. Okay, put that in your pocket. We'll come back to it later. So, as the case came before the Supreme Court, Chief Justice John Marshall distilled the essence of it into 3 questions. Number 1, does Marbury have the legal right to his commission? Number 2, if yes, is the court-ordered writ of mandamus the proper legal means to get the commission? And number 3, if yes, does the court have the authority to grant the writ of mandamus? Okay, so now let's look at how the court decided the case. With respect to the 3 questions, the answer to number 1, did Marbury have the legal right to his commission? The answer was yes. Congress established the new courts and the judgeships, and the president did his constitutional duty to appoint judges to them, and the fact that some of them were undelivered was just a technicality. Everything on that count was above board and perfectly legal. Okay, so if Marbury was legally entitled to his commission, then the answer to the second question, is the writ of mandamus the legal means to get it? Yes. And at this point, Marbury's feeling pretty good about himself, like everything is going in his favor and he's about to get the Supreme Court to issue a writ of mandamus for his commission. But regarding the third question, Marbury better get on his disappointment pants because things are about to take a turn. And it's the answer to this third question that makes this case the most important Supreme Court case in history. So pay attention and do not miss this. The third question was, does the court have the authority to grant the writ of mandamus? And John Marshall's answer to this question was no. Let me explain. If you were paying attention earlier when we looked at Article 3, you might have noticed that it says precisely nothing about the court issuing writs of mandamus. So why did Marbury think the court could do so? Well, he thought so because the Judiciary Act of 1789, which in addition to establishing all the lower federal courts, also said in Article 13 that the Supreme Court has authority to issue writs of mandamus in original jurisdiction cases. That is the law. So Marbury's case is being heard before the Supreme Court for the first time, and that means it's within original jurisdiction. And therefore, according to the Judiciary Act, the court has the authority to issue the writ. But John Marshall saddled his judicial horse of power and did something unbelievable. He said that Article 13 of the Judiciary Act conflicted with Article 3 of the Constitution. Remember, Article 3 gives the court original jurisdiction over cases involving states and ambassadors, but Marbury and Madison are neither states nor ambassadors. Marbury is a judge and Madison is a cabinet secretary. So, while the writ would be legal under the Judiciary Act because it in essence expanded the scope of the court's original jurisdiction, John Marshall said that's not what the Constitution says about the court's authority, and therefore Article 13 of the Judiciary Act is unconstitutional and therefore null and void. So ultimately, Marbury did not get his commission. So that brings us to why this case matters. When John Marshall declared that law unconstitutional, he essentially invested the Supreme Court with the power of judicial review. Now, Hamilton had written about this in Federalist 78, but it wasn't explicitly mentioned in the Constitution. However, with this case, the judicial branch became the final interpreter of the Constitution and took up the mantle of striking down or upholding laws passed by Congress based on their constitutionality. Massive case. Watch this video again if you didn't get it. All right, thanks for watching. Click right here to grab my view packet, which is going to help you get an A in your class.
So did you hear that? If the Constitution doesn't say it, then all laws are repugnant. They're null and void. If it's not constitutional, then it's null and void. It's void ab initio. It's no good. You don't have to follow it. It's not a law. It's not a rule. It's not any of that stuff. That's exactly what Marbury versus Madison did. And people need to realize that's one of the top cases when you go in and you fight these things. That's what you need to go by, because right there they simply state that. I wish I had the exact terms. Let me see if I can get it up here. The terms. Let me see here. Because there's let's see. Congress does not have. Let me see. There's a way that it says it that is. It's pretty awesome. I used to know this by the back of my hand, but I do not now. I don't know why, but I don't. Let me see here. There we go. There's Madison.
Yeah, that's the one that kind of fights CPS and everything else. If you all look at your
Well, that's it. If it doesn't fall in line with the Constitution, then it's null and void. It's no
Article
good.
3, Section 2, Clause 2. So if you heard him, any case where the state is a party who has the jurisdiction, and if you go back to the Federalist Papers, the reason for that being in there was to eliminate any bias or favoritism by a state court. That's why they had original jurisdiction. So every single one of you out there that had a CPS case or anything else, it always said the state of, or the department of, or this or that versus you. Well, why is the state here adjudicating a case where the state is a party? They can't. The Constitution's extremely clear on that. So a lot of people, I've got a lot of this too, of going, well, good luck in your case. And I go, there's no luck to this. And there's no wiggle room with this, because the interpretation, the state does not get to interpret the Constitution. Only a federal judge and federal case law and federal codes get to dictate those things. And there is a very big scrutiny of a lot of things. Well, the state's laws, and we've all heard this, Maine law, Tennessee law, Indiana law, Illinois law, all these other states don't have laws. They have a constitution, that mimics that. That's the only thing that it does. But other than that, the state doesn't have the ability to make laws. To actually do so is a violation of their statehood contract. That only Congress, the power of Congress, has the power to pass laws. So all the things in the way we've been living, your traffic tickets, your all these other things that you're going to court for, where the state is another thing, they're adjudicating those things in the state, saying, well, we have the right to do this and rule over the people. And then you've got Rooker versus Feldman and a couple of the others to go through. Well, a lot of that doesn't make sense if the state's a party, does it? Because the Constitution is clear. The Supreme Court has that. And then, of course, the state says, well, yeah, that's the state Supreme Court. That didn't exist when the Constitution was written. There were no state courts. They didn't exist.
They were developed during, what was it, the 1789 thing that they were just saying.
Yeah, that's where they were defaulting to. And we miss so much of not just the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. You have got to go into the Federalist Papers and read the Federalist Papers and some of the other things that are going in there, such as, separation of church and state and all that other stuff. That doesn't even exist in our Constitution, and none of it. It's a concept. It's something that was a conversation that said this, and that's what the Federalist Papers, a lot of that goes into explain. And if you're doing constitutional law properly, you must include the Federalist Papers to go back to the original train of thought or ideals of our founding fathers, of why it was written the way it was written. This whole thing, and then you notice the most. And here's the other pattern I've noticed, and you'll get it too. You ever notice the most corrupt states have the most gun control laws?
Yeah. Do you notice the most corrupt states have the most kids missing too?
Mm-hmm. Why? Because they fear we, the people, actually understanding and knowing what your Second Amendment is for, even enough that it doesn't matter. Sheriff, police officer, and I have a constitutional right. When it gets to this point, you become a tyrant and you violate the Constitution, and you keep pushing. As they say, Samuel Colt, God made men, but Samuel Colt made all people equal. Why? Because they come at you with what? Guns, tasers, gas, everything else. And that's why they want to take it from us, because then we're defenseless. That's what Ireland's going through now with the Muslim invasion in Ireland, Scotland, England, New Zealand, and all these other things, and all these other places that don't have the Second Amendment. That's why Alberta's going freaking nuts right now. And I'll be honest with you, I actually see in them becoming independent and applying for statehood. Why? Because they can get the Second Amendment. They would have to ratify their own constitution. But I think they see a lot of benefits of, Canada took our guns and now they're in the streets and they're defenseless. I mean, they're showing up in tractors and some of the other things and all the lies of, oh, well, it's this, that. Listen, man, Cain and Abel, that was with a rock. And if somebody wants to kill somebody, or listen, you know what laws? Criminals don't follow laws.
Right. It's just keeping an honest man honest. Just keeping an honest man honest.
It's meant to keep the government honest. Because you've got a gun. Now I've got a gun. Now we're on equal terms. You can't have tyranny when you're armed. And the ability and the training to use it. That's why it was so important to our founding fathers, because they realized what it was about. And somebody said something, well, that only meant to cannons and muskets and that. Great. I'll take a point of cannon. You know what I'm going to load that thing with? The silverware drawer. I'm going to take it all out. And you ever seen the damage a cannon can do?
Yeah.
Boom. So, and if you think for a minute, oh, well, the military is going to turn on the people. Do you realize how many veterans we have in this country that still hold their oath and know what a fucking oath is? That these politicians and everybody else, elected appointed officials and actors, don't have a fucking clue what that means, I'll be dead honest with you. I think it ought to be a rule that if you're going to serve in Congress or anything else, you need to serve our country in one form or another. Because those are the people laying their lives on the line, and if they have any integrity, any code, any honor, because there's the biggest issue. I mean, England requires everybody to serve. A lot of people don't know that. There's other nations. You must serve so much time in the military. That's how they get some of the things that they get. But until we take the evil, and here's the problem. We have been too soft on things, and it needs to come back down to, we need to bring back executions, public executions, and show people, you do this, like with these judges, these magistrates, and all these crooked ones that all have committed war on the Constitution. You need to build the gallows out on the county courthouse out there and start hanging these bastards for the treason that they're doing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that that's gonna. I mean, that might do something, but these guys are so, they're so stuck up that they don't even care. I mean, this says it right here. It plainly says, it says right here, it says, however, the court declined to issue the writ, concluding instead that the Section 13 authorization was an attempt by Congress to expand the court's original jurisdiction beyond its constitutional limits, and therefore was void.
Mm-hmm.
There it is, right there. So taking our kids, it's void. That's the courts trying to expand what they're doing, and and our rights that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights give us to be our own and our family rights to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. All that stuff, they don't give a shit. They're ruling against it all the time, and they know that at the end of the day, it's death. Like maybe the gallows that they have, putting them in there would make a difference, but I don't think so, man. Until these people, I think a life jail sentence is more scary to these guys than being put to death. To be perfectly honest. Fill these courts up with them. You know what I mean? Instead of us.
Put them in the jails with some of the people that are the murderers and people that just don't anymore. You know what I'm saying? That are just gone. Mm-hmm. There's even mentally ill people in there that are just complete psychos and wackos. Let them fear for their fucking lives like the rest of them. You think a pedo's bad in there? Do you know how bad it is for somebody that used to be law enforcement or a judge?
That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying. If we put those judges acting against the Constitution in jail, you watch what's going to happen. That PC is going to be filled up real quick.
Oh, they'll be putting some money on people's, account and shit like that for their cellmates real fast. Mm-hmm. Families, there ain't no law against putting money on their cellmate's fucking account. Mm-hmm. Hey, how did that $500 end up on there for all the stuff I can get in jail? You got people that are there for life. What's another life for them? There was just an article I read the other day that he even told an inmate had told the guards and everybody else that he was going on a pedo killing spree. And I forgot the number of sexual offenders for women and children that this dude actually took out. And everybody's like, well, they told her this. Well, they should have protected him. No, that's where the animals go in the cage that can't live amongst society. Mm-hmm. Is the concept of what it used to be, the worst of the worst. The only time we really ever jailed somebody was when they took a life. Now they'll throw them in jail for anything. We've got people that are, you're not supposed to have debtor's prison. But if you don't pay your child support in South Carolina, guess what? They have debtor's prison. They will put you in jail for getting behind on your child support. That is debtor's prison. Why the people of South Carolina don't cry out and sue the state or go after the elected and appointed officials of going, oh, hell no, because they've all been gaslit. We've all had MK Ultra and we've all been brainwashed. Those of us that would, once again, bought into it. I learned it very early on, with a lot of things I learned from my grandfather that was a World War II vet. There was the shit they seen and other things in the games and even the psychological warfare they experimented on during half of those things. But we got into bed with some really nasty people at World War II, and we were wanting to stay out of it until they turned around and provoked us once again with the bombing of Pearl Harbor. We were out of it. We didn't want nothing to do with it. We were more than happy to build stuff or sell them stuff. That was never an issue. But, as far as production, but you've got all these politicians and stuff that are buying and selling kids. They're doing, for power. They're selling it for sex slaves or cheap labor. I mean, it's another form of slavery. And these are the people that go, oh, well, I'm not for slavery and I believe in this and I believe in that. But they're still running a modern form of slavery. And once again, that's unconstitutional. But do they get slavery charges put on them? No, because their buddy's a judge and they got a lot of money and this and that. That's the first thing that should be done to these people is lock up their accounts and freeze their accounts and strip them of everything they've got. Now you've got no resources. I mean, there's the thing to take and strip, especially with charges like that, with hard evidence, absolutely. But once again, we've been adjudicating stuff even in federal courts with charges of treason and or sedition, and it's not even supposed to be happening in federal courts under the Constitution.
Yeah, this part says, funny that you say it. So it says right here, it says the Chief Justice then turned from the philosophical justification for judicial review as arising from the very concept of a written constitution to specific clauses of the Constitution. The judicial power, he observed, was extended to all cases arising under the Constitution. It was too extravagant to be maintained that the framers had intended that a case arising under the Constitution should be decided without examining the instrument under which it arises.
Mhm.
Suppose, he said, that Congress laid a duty on an article exported from a state or passed a bill of attainder or an ex post facto law or provided that treason should be proved by the testimony of one witness. Would that court enforce such a law in the face of an express constitutional provision? They would not. He continued, because their oath required by the Constitution obligated them to support the Constitution and to enforce such laws that would violate the oath. Finally, the Chief Justice noted that the Supremacy Clause gave the Constitution precedence over the laws and treaties, providing that only laws which shall be made in pursuance of the Constitution shall be the supreme law of the land. Period.
Yeah.
End of story.
Yeah. And people don't realize when that applies to that too, that goes for states' policies, procedures, and all the other stuff in codes. They all must be constitutionally sound. And they're supposed to be running them through the state's law librarian or the law library to make sure that it is. But you've either got mass corruption of law library, the law library within the states, or something's there. Because how is this stuff and these things getting through as state statutes, codes, and everything else, and they're not even constitutional? Because they'll say you're guilty as hell all the way to the Supreme Court in the state, but you take one case and it's like a walk in the park. In a federal case, nope, unconstitutional, throw it out. And then when they find out that you've got them like that, what's the first thing they do? Here's a big old fat fucking check, and here's a non-disclosure agreement. Don't tell me.
You shut your mouth, right? Yep, shut your mouth. And that's it.
Otherwise, they threaten you with what? And then you have usually a lawyer with it. Well, we could drag this out for a long time and go through this and go there. I go, has anybody ever actually looked? And that was the thing when I got the schedule for when the trial, after you get out of mediation and you say, nope, I want to go to trial. Once your court date's set, there is no leniency. They're very strict. Yes, you can ask for an extended, a continuance or an extension of a deadline. But that court date is not going to change. They're not going to keep pushing. And that is the biggest lie I think I've heard from people, is saying, well, they could bury us for 3-4 years. This case will go on for 10 years. And this, I go, have you even looked at what the guidelines and schedule is for federal court? Because that's a lie. So many weeks out from your case, all your deadlines are laid out. I mean, when they give us the stuff for our case, pro se sue juris, all of that's in there, and it's like, well, that doesn't make sense, because I was told they could drag it out, or they could do this, or they could. I'm like, and this is a very strict, and they even say right in there, no, this is a very strict schedule, and you have to have very extenuating circumstances to ask for those continuances or a delay or more time as far as the guidelines with those things. And 90% of the time, over 90% of the time, it's kicked back. No, you will stick to the schedule. We have a set schedule. and they're very punctual with it. So that was a lot of lies. I heard a lot of people say, well, they could drag it out for 5 years. I go, how? They have a time limit, and those time limits are set by the federal courts. And it's like, wow. And they're like, who told you that? My attorney. Oh, really?
Yeah,
So
him be racking up that paycheck, man.
let me get that quick fix. Let me settle out of court. Let's not even go to court. Let's make this all about paper. By motions and this and that, let's do away with that. Let's go to court. I mean, that, half of that to me is, hey, I've got my witnesses, I've got my questions. Let's just go.
That's the way they do it when you're in the lower courts. If you go and you hold a trial, that's the way they do it there. Like, you ready today? Here we go.
I'm ready. Let's pull the trigger. You see that Florida mom against DCF? The clerk of the court didn't even know what sui juris, and she's been there 2 years. That shows you the exact thing we're talking about, of lack of knowledge and education, even by your court officials. That's how ignorant they are. You have ineffective people in all over the place. Ineffective counsel, judges that are violating their own. You've got people that are court clerks that are doing this and that and don't even know what it is. They're not even qualified to be in there. You know why? Bob's your uncle. That's why. The good old boy system, my cousin sister thing. Oh, you work in the clerk's office. You just file a bunch of papers and then don't have to have any legal premise to do anything. Some of them no degree, any of those things. And they don't know the difference between sui juris, pro se. They are two different things, but you got to understand the power. You can't invoke those things, and when you do invoke them, and the power that comes with those, that most people are ignorant of. When you do pro se sui juris, you're saying, I'm competent. I am fully aware of everything here. I'm aware of the court rules. I can do the proceedings. I know the lingo, the thing, and understanding in federal court too. It's common law court. It's not what you see in the state court. Why? The Constitution is under common law. So it has to be a common law court. Common language. So half of their stuff, but you have got to go on the record when you do that. As they sit down and they say opening statements or this, that, well, Your Honor, I'd like to go on the record, and the record would take and recognize that I am doing this pro se sui juris, and that this is a common law court because the Constitution is common law, and that we are not going to deal with any legalese in this particular courtroom, and that the court would take and recognize that. And that the court also recognizes that we, the people, are the government, and that every other person in this courtroom are elected and appointed officials and actors, and that we, the people, are the origination of the government. You have now taken control of that courtroom.
And that's the way it's supposed to be.
And that's the way it's supposed to be. Exactly, Darren. But they don't teach you that because they don't want you to go in there, because when you have an attorney, you're showing the court, I don't have the ability, the knowledge, or the premise, or the brain power to stand up for myself. I am ignorant of these things. And that is sad that we can't do that. And the other thing I got a question of, if, they throw Rooker versus Feldman out there so much, but I would have to challenge even Rooker versus Feldman under, Article 3, Section 2, Clause 2. If the state has jurisdiction over, the things that they say they do, well, then what about Article 3, Section 2, Clause 2? If the state's a party, the Supreme Court has original jurisdiction. Why are we even arguing Rooker versus Feldman, that case? I mean, in all honesty, and I think maybe that was just the sense of the argument. But the constitutionality of it is if the state's a party, and go back to the Federalist Papers, and that's a good constitutionalist judge. And listen, your judges that serve in the capacity of the role of the courts of civil rights division must be a constitutionalist, in my opinion. They must know that Constitution. They must live, breathe everything historically and everything constitutional to adjudicate. Because there's the other thing I've noticed too, Darren, is the federal court judges don't do like the lower courts where they play ignorant. They know the law. And the judges will stand for the Constitution and go, no, that's unconstitutional. And matter of fact, they've even I've done some case law study of some of the civil courts, especially doing some background study. Man, those judges can call out and just stop things and just say, you know what? I can't believe what I just heard. I am so appalled that, this and that. And you got to understand the other power you have in that courtroom too is the power to arrest anybody as a citizen's arrest, including a judge or anything in that courtroom. And the U.S. Marshals that serve in a federal courtroom as the bailiff,
right,
will arrest them.
They're supposed to.
They're supposed to. I mean, if you get done and you've got somebody trapped on the stand that you've got them on constitutional rights violations, it's just as simple. Everybody's done questioning. Are there any further questions? Yeah, that's when you get up. Your Honor, I'd like to go on the record. I hereby charge this person with acts of treason and sedition based off the testimony that is presented today and the evidence, and that they be taken into immediate custody and be charged as such with the crimes. You have the ability to do this in a federal courtroom when doing that. Most attorneys won't show you that. And of course, we've been, the other thing that cracked me up is, where the biggest indoctrination came with the courts? It shows like Perry Mason, Law and Order SVU, all those court shows, everything else, that it was all for a show, and everybody actually thought, wow, this is what court's like. And it's like, you watch half of those shows and it's like, that ain't the way it's supposed to go. Wait a minute.
Right.
That judge ain't supposed to do that. No. And everybody goes, what the hell?
Yeah, it's not like that. It's not what they show in there at all.
No,
it's not near nothing at all like that.
And like you were saying earlier about, the thing with the cloning and everything else, guys, listen here. Have you seen the Hollywood makeup that they put on just for movies and everything else? Do you really think it's that hard you're not seeing these people in person, but these people put on this makeup? You can't tell the damn difference. I mean, some of the makeup they do, especially for even sci-fi. I mean, if you've ever been to one, what do they call that convention with all the...
Oh, yeah, the Comic-Con?
Yeah. Let me tell you something. Holy crap. Even when they were doing Klingons and some of the other races and some of the other things, it was very intricate. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Why do you think that they would be that transparent with us and not put somebody in makeup to lie to us? It's all a show.
Well, that's where we're at now. But you know what? It's crazy because the Bible also says when we stop trusting the news and we stop trusting our government and all that stuff, then it's the end of time. So I guess that makes it that we're at the end of times, right?
Hoorah. So be it. Because here's my thing. Everybody says, oh, well, you mean you got a death wish? You've got that. No. Well, you know how much I look forward to, and with my beliefs that my creator, what's going to be on that other side? Only answers. None of this squabbling. There's absolutes. There's not going to be any bickering, arguing, hiding, this and that. It's absolutes. And all saying everything. So there's nothing else.
Hey, Dr. Death wants to know. He says, it's not me against the state. For me here in Iowa, it's me against CPS. Is that against the Article 3, yes or no?
If CPS a private corporation as listed on there, or are they a state representative, and how are they filed in your state? Because if so, it could say, if it says like DCSF of Iowa, those type of things, you'll have to watch how it's structured in your state. And that's why we say some states have subcontractors, some are actually employees of the state. Right. But either way, they still have to abide by those things. But that's the structure of your state, and that would vary from state to state when it comes to that. And that's why state stuff is so sloppy, and we really shouldn't even be dealing with this shit. We should go straight to the federal courts and say, hey, I've got this argument and we're going to deal with this, and they're not going to roll over it. They're not going to do this. And why? Because you're in the right courtroom.
Well, there just shouldn't be a courtroom for stealing our kids. Period. That's the bottom line there. That should be it right there. That's it.
It's real simple. Unless you've committed and been convicted of a crime, even if you've been convicted of a crime, you have a right to see your kids.
Mhm.
Okay. Unless you've got that particular thing and there's a conviction in there, you still hold your, because you're innocent until proven guilty. And
Well,
there's
you're
the
supposed to
thing
be.
state courts don't do is you're guilty until proven innocent.
Mhm.
I mean,
You're supposed to be, and that's where I think it was in the Tiff and the Punisher show. We were talking about that earlier. In my court case, I out of 140 questions I answered, I pled the fifth because I hadn't gone to my criminal case yet, which was dismissed down the line. But that judge took it and used her adverse inference and found me guilty of all charges, and then they used that against me for my TPR hearing, which wasn't right at all. Like, I protected myself with my Fifth Amendment, and then this judge comes along and says, "Nope, you don't get to have that protection here. I will use my adverse inference as a judge and decide for you, and then we'll find you
they're not
guilty."
allowed to do
And
that
that's ridiculous.
because exercising your Fifth Amendment is not an admission of guilt, and federal case law is very specific on that. It's not.
And if you found me guilty by adverse inference, that means that you denied me my Fifth Amendment right.
Exactly.
So, I mean, that's one for another case right there. I mean, denied that. That's it.
Doctor death, yes. Then if your state is like that, as you say, and they're using the county attorney or a state's attorney, then yes, absolutely. Then it is the state against you, and then yes, it would fall under that. No matter what the paperwork says, it's also the actors in this, that. There are there are states to where CPS or DCS is a subcontractor for the state, and they have their own attorney for that company, so to speak. But it also says in there, let me see. I think I've got it here. Let me find the image here, Darren. Here, let me share this one here. And this is true, right? What happened to it? There it is. Let me hide this one right here. CPS is a corporation. So are police departments. They're not sheriff. Sheriff and police departments are two different things, and so are courts. Corporations, look at this right here. A corporation can neither practice law nor hire an attorney or lawyer to carry on the business of practicing law for it. People versus California Protected Corporation, 76 Cal, App 354 and 244 Pact at 1089. Right there's your case law. That means CPS is not supposed to hire an attorney to represent them as a corporation. And if we already gave you the numbers, I think, on other shows, and you guys don't have it. It's on my, I believe, in our news page on Gunning for CPS. Is we listed all the corporate numbers for all the states. They're DUNS numbers. That's a corporation number. There's now two separate things for business that used to blur the line. A DUNS number is to do business with private entities, business to business. If you do business with the government of any sort, you have to go under the, I think it's the EUA or EUW, which is a whole set of credit systems that is just for government now to deal with the United States government. So that's a separate number. But when you deal with private other businesses and contract with them, well, now you've got to have this number. Well, it specifically says that you cannot be a corporation and be involved in government. So you're not supposed to have those numbers. Here's your DUNS number, your Dun & Bradstreet number. And if you've been a business owner and you've had to deal with anything with other businesses or other major corporations or things that are incorporated, you have to have a DUNS number on top of your FEIN number to actually do business for that. It's a credit system to show that you are creditable. And when you have that, that's an issue. See, states shouldn't have a credit system applied to them. We're a state. And now that they've divided that system, now it's very apparent and clear, because there was some cases in case law that went before the federal government of that argument. But now that the federal government, or the United States government, has created this secondary system for just government entities, yeah, it's pretty clear where that line is. Yeah, okay, now you've got, no, I'm not talking about this number that you got to have for dealing with government to government or state to state. That's a federal number issued by the United States government. This is a private corporation. Dun and Bradstreet is a private individual corporation that does and issues credits for businesses or gives you a credit rating for your business. So we've got a lot of stuff that, like I said, we've been shanghaied very, very deep, and it's going to take a lot of undoing, but it needs to be done. But yeah, once people would take and would actually take and deal with that, that's fine. Dr. Death, yes, CPS is under the Department of Health and Human Services for your state as well as it is federal. Federal calls the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, which is what RFK is head of, and then his sub-department or one of his departments is the Department of Children and Family Services, DC and Youth Services, I think it is. I think it's like Department of Children and Youth and Family Services is what it's called under the federal guidelines. That's where those write the books and the guidelines and everything else for everything else that the states are supposed to have. And that's the argument of who has jurisdiction over CPS. Are they federal or are they state? And that's been one of the unanswered questions where there's no checks and balances. That's why they've gone so unchecked at this time. But a lot of that was done through the Clinton administration and through the Obama administration with a lot of things that were passed that were tucked into bills and other things. And there's the other thing I got a huge problem with. They need to quit stacking shit together and vote on these things case by case and individual and quit stacking bills together.
Oh, that's a good one. Florida, FL Mom against DCF. Yeah, the answer to your question is, yeah, the Moms that Give Liberty are trying to get that to change to Parents Month, but MAGA is trying to get it changed to Veterans Month. But as of now, there's no things on the table. But this is a good question. She goes, how do you deal with someone who calls your deprived parents' rights issues drama? And how would you handle that piece of, what she wanted to say there? That's great. I love it. People do like, take your drama, take your drama. It's not drama. It's your real life. What are you talking about? Drama, people say that shit all the time. Don't let it, just walk away from them. It's not even worth it. It's not even worth the time. They're that inconsiderate and they're that ignorant,
Listen, federal case law is very clear on your Fourth Amendment that it says anything that happens, your person, your property, anything that's within your home or happens within the dwelling of your home is extremely off limits. And there's so much case law on Fourth Amendment. Darren will tell you too, the Fourth Amendment stuff is so bulletproof. So it's so well established that it's not even a question. And what you do inside your home, how you worship, how you eat, how you practice, and what you do in your home is none of the government's fucking business. Bottom line, it's protected by the Fourth Amendment.
Right, but she's saying that this person is saying that her, like, it must be a workmate or something, says that person says my case for my kids is on drama and how to handle that peaceful. When the statement is offensive. So when she's saying, like, when you're having a conversation and you're talking about your case, if you're like, oh, that's just drama, you're just causing drama or whatever, how do you handle people peacefully? You know what? You just turn and walk away. Don't even get engaged with them. They're ignorant.
You tell them your feelings and your opinions are yours, and that's okay. But your feelings are not fucking law, and nor are they fact. You're entitled to them all you want. Other than that, fuck off. But here's my opinion. I also have a right to object to them. Tell you to kiss my ass and fuck off. And here's my Constitution. And if you try and impose that or come past that line of the Constitution, that's what your Second Amendment is for. And if more people realized what that was for, a lot of this shit would stop, because as soon as these fuckers started doing that, they'd start filling up morgues and body bags. And there's the absolutely truth. And if you think I'm trying to start or instigate something, it is constitutionally sound. What I said and the established federal case law to back it up is 100%. That's exactly, even under the Federalist Papers, why the Second Amendment was put in there, to make sure they didn't get to the point we are now or further. We could stop them. We are the government. That's the big confusion too. And you'll hear judges, we heard that with what was that with Judge Davis whenever what's his name ended up going into the courtroom with that. You're not the law. You're a servant of the law. You got to understand the difference. When you walk into the public and you serve and everything else, your privacy's gone. This is gone. You are subject to review by the people when you serve. And no, you have not. You're on a power trip. You have an obligation or a debt to the Constitution and to the people to uphold those things. And the problem is with a combination of police, private corporations, and not even legal. They're not even elected officials. Only your sheriff is a duly elected sheriff. These police forces, to be honest, they shouldn't even legally exist. They shouldn't, because they're not elected. They're not elected or appointed. They're not legal to do. We're supposed to elect all of our representatives and those that would take and stand in those positions, hence your sheriff and everything else. And can you imagine if you defunded literally, the police and redirected that money towards the sheriff's office, and half the shit that would stop? They can do code enforcements and some of the other things with this and that, but you've got parking enforcements, and come on, this is some stupid shit that some of these inner cities have. Well, you can't this, you can't that. We've got to do this. We've got to. I really don't give a shit. That still impedes on my freedoms and my constitutional rights. If I'm in public, you can't dictate how I take and do what I do in public, so long as I'm not violating the Constitution in public or private. You can kind of fuck off.
Yeah, you
That's
fuck off
where
a
we
lot.
should be.
You get I'll tell you what you do. You do this, FL Mom, right here. You say, I don't know if I still have these sweatshirts anymore, but you get some gear from us. That's what you do, which you're coming out more. But just don't even engage in these people. We got to remember to keep putting this one up too, this support the stream thing. Don't even engage in people that call your case drama. It's not drama. It's your real life. It's what you're living. Yeah. It's just not even worth the bullshit, because you know what the truth is. You're not going to convince some big-headed person that thinks that it's drama. You know what? Tell CPS to go to their fucking house and see how they like it. Let's see how much drama it is when CPS comes on their door and fucking throws their kids in jail. Takes their kids for fucking dishes in this thing. See how much drama it is.
What one person, what a lot of people are starting to do with a lot of other things is finding these caseworkers and going to their house and knocking on the door and harassing them the same way. Hey, listen, man, I need to tell you about this or this or that. Or listen, you're doing this. I'm going to turn the tables on you. And what do? They get removed from the case, and they try to do some bullshit of interference. And, that person was stalking me and this, that. How is it stalking for you? Me against you, but it's not the opposite way. Let alone the other thing, I think that, when you do a Fourth Amendment thing, we ought to do another one on that, is we talk about curtilage. A lot of people are not even aware of curtilage that applies to the Fourth Amendment, and which even applies to your car and everything. In other words, you can't enter or this or that. You have to be able to see in a clear line of sight. You can't tamper with anything, such as opening a window a little bit, shoving a curtain over, or basically being a fucking peeping Tom. And it comes down to the same damn thing. It has to be, in other words, you can't rutledge or ask somebody to move something or do this, or for an example, hey, why did you pull me over? Well, and then they get you for all this. Well, there's drugs in this. Well, what was the initial charge for pulling me over? Because you got to have probable cause to do the first one to get the others, because it's a chain of events. You got to have the first reason. Well, we're doing sobriety check. Those are illegal, search and seizure. I'm sorry, you got a warrant for what? You got a warrant? Why?
And to make those legal, they have to put them out in the paper. I think it's like 2 weeks before. They have to give public notice to those type stops and everything for them to even be legal. And they're not just like they put them in a small corner. They have to be big ads. They have to be big. Well, the public's put on notice. So Cody, what does it mean if the courts are tampering with your TPR paperwork? It means that they're fucked, and you need to come up with constitutional charges. That's dictating. That's you can't do that. You can't mess with your paperwork. Yeah, it's fraud in the court. Due process, you have all kinds of stuff. If you can prove that stuff, make a complaint to the commissions. Call the office of the inspector general. Make some noise, because if they're really messing with your paperwork, they got bigger problems.
That's forging court documents and tampering with court documents. Yeah, that's a form of fraud upon the court, as well as multiple charges. filling it out improperly. They on my particular one, the caseworker actually put down an address I didn't even live at. That's fraud upon the court. I've never lived at that address, and that was for them to basically have the judge do basically kick me out of my own house that I was the only one that owned, showing that I had multiple residences or this, and that was not the case whatsoever. And that's the thing that's going to bite him in the ass too. And the funny thing is when he did it, the magistrate used the words, and this is one thing that should never happen, is I'm going to err on the side of caution. So you're going to commit a constitutional rights violation on caution. You just committed war against the court. In this case, should have been thrown out from the very beginning, because that was the first thing I looked over at the one that I had that was the attorney. I go, that's my house. You can't prevent me from being in my own home that I alone own. And it was like, I heard the argument and I thought it was funny. They go, well, that's your marital home. And I go, it doesn't matter. Homesteader rights I own. It was a premarital asset. If we were to get divorced, that means you would have to redo all your divorce and assets and everything else, that one gets rights over something else versus anything. I says, it's a premarital asset. And the rules are, then you have to prove that the spouse that doesn't own it was financially contributing and have a form of paperwork showing that they have paid over, I think, 60% of the bills, or it can be tracked from. I go, no, it all came out of my account. I paid it solely. I made the money for it and the entire thing. And that magistrate, I mean, you were looking at constitutional rights violations after violation. And Darren knows my case, like I said, very well. We've talked about it. But the amount of constitutional rights violations was one after another, after another, after another, after another, and forgery and perjury. And they just covered each other's, butt up because they knew about it. I mean, every little thing. The GALs, it says right in there in their own handbook, this is their requirements. They're supposed to do this and that. Called them out on the stand. Did the judge give a shit about, or the magistrate, anything about that? Nope. They didn't do an investigation. They didn't pull any medical records. They didn't pull any psychological records. They didn't do this. They didn't do that. And with all the stories and everything else that came up, and it was like, well, that's okay. We'll do this. And then, then you come up with a medical exam. And it was funnier now. I'm like, do the medical exam. There ain't shit there. And sure enough, looked at it. Nobody's been touched. Ever. Nothing. Clean bill of health. And, okay, so what do you have? Okay, well, we have this forensic interview that we're going to do this. Oh, you mean the forensic interviews that are not allowed to be brought into the courtroom? Oh, yeah, we found all that too, didn't we, Darren? There's a whole medical journal and everything else with case law. They cannot use a forensic interview in your case or put it in court. It's a violation of due process. You have a right to face your accuser. Whether you're in the courtroom and they question whatever and make you leave the courtroom for safety concerns or anything like that, other than that, you have to have extreme, overwhelming evidence for those things. They don't follow it. They don't care. They're going to frame people. And this is how they do it. Oh, trust me, everybody, once it's over and said and done, the whistle's blown on everything for, you guys. Like I said, this is not just here. The very fact that they obtain the children or even open anything, they start with a constitutional rights violation within their policies, procedures, and their training in all 50 states. And we've got the evidence for it. And here's the thing. If you're doing it and it's in there, that means every case you've ever touched is thrown out. All of them. Why? Because you're actively committing acts of treason and sedition. You don't have the power to adjudicate. You don't have the power to tax. You don't have the power to send elected officials to even Congress or the Senate. Oh, it gets real bad. When you're actively involved in that, state has nothing. It's null, it's void, everything. Both state and local governments are all null and void. The state can't even do business with somebody else legally with that charge.
Yeah, you got to put a, that's when the states will file an injunction on that, and they'll put a stop to it. immediately until they sort that stuff out. And that kind of goes with this question right here. How can they enforce codes if codes are unconstitutional? Well, you can't. What you need to do is file a lawsuit to challenge the enforcement of that code. And then they'll seek an injunction to pause the enforcement during the review. And if it's unconstitutional, it's Brown versus the Board of Education, I believe, that enforcement stops only after legal challenges succeeded. But Brown versus Education says that if it's illegal, man, then you can't enforce it. So if there's a code that you think is unconstitutional that they're enforcing, make some noise about it. Because until someone makes noise about it, they're going to continue to just keep enforcing what they're talking about. And that's the problem, again, that none of us are fighting. None of us are standing up. We just put our heads down, we pay the fine, and we walk away. And that's it.
And that's the recommendation all your attorneys will do. We can get you out of it this way. Just comply and just do this. And there's a lot of people that are getting trapped in that. Well, you get to keep your kids, but technically you're going to be supervised from CPS until they're 18. No, you can.
Which is bullshit. That's one of the things that they have in Maine. They have a reconsideration. A lot of states do. They have a reconsideration after if a year's gone by and your kid hadn't been legally adopted. You can go ahead and file for a you don't get your parental rights back. It's like a whole new thing, which is stupid bullshit anyway. But that's one of the stipulations is that CPS is in your life till that child's 18, which just keeps them in line because that just means that they're going to come back through, they're going to open a new case, and they're going to get more money from you.
They're going to milk that child. That's why they love foster care. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because it allows them to go into somebody else's home. Now, here's the thing for foster parents. Even though you got to do it to sign it, they have to allow you to come in the home, inspect this, inspect. That's why they don't want to place them with family. Because the family can tell them, fuck off, you're not getting in my home. Well, we have to. No, you don't. It's a familiar thing. We're family. That doesn't
the money's not the same for kinship. There's no money for kinship.
No. And they're
it's all foster families, right?
They need to rip that out and make that equal playing if it's here or there.
Mm-hmm.
And familiar, though, without the CPS investigation of anything else, is, hey, do a follow-up call. Maybe do this, but once again, get out of fucking people's homes. There was just a case with somebody that just entered a home. I'm trying to think. I think it was here. Maybe it was in Tennessee or Ohio, and you guys have seen it probably going around Facebook of somebody that was a what do you want to call it? Like a therapist or something like that, and was in the home of a kid with autism and was molesting the kid in the home. And got caught. Now, why the fuck are you in the house? And second off, this is the modern technology of this world. You should have cameras with audio and everything and meet that federal standard and retain all that till the child is 18 and full transparency for both the parents and the law enforcement and everybody else to access every fucking move you make because you're on a paid dime by the state.
And this bullshit too. This bullshit with these foster families. Look, if your kid goes to a foster home or whatever, and they're getting abused or neglected in that place, those kids should be returned back to the parents. I don't give a shit what you're saying. That should just be it, because that kid doesn't need to get any more fucked up in the head than they already are from being removed from all the shit that they've gone through. But now you're going to move them to another place that you're not vetting them properly, or you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. That's just wrong.
I grew up around it. I grew up in the Chicagoland area. But the one thing is, there was a lot of that went on. I mean, people got abused, stuff was going on, this and that, when they were never removed from the home, but people overcame shit. I mean, they had, they overcame their circumstances, their poverty, their abusive parents, and it made them who they are as an individual moving forward, even to turn around and say, I'm not going to be like that. And you got to make your own choice. And that's the thing of independent thinking and free thought that we should be giving to our children, is giving them the options that, hey, once you become 18, you're a legal adult. You get to make your own decisions and you're responsible for you, and consequences have actions. And leave it at that. And say, you better think about it before you act. I mean, that's just like saying, think before you speak. You better think about what you do, critical thinking skills that are poorly done, because now it's all impulse control and, instant gratification that everybody wants it. And we see that, especially when we're going through a lot of this stuff we've been going through in the case, is, well, I want my kids and I want them now. It's not going to happen that way. Okay. there's going to be a process. And like you were saying, I think of the tip and punisher, is that's the biggest red flag, especially with advocates out there that are taking a bunch of money and guaranteeing you your kid's coming back home. Nobody can guarantee shit with this system unless they're on the inside track and they're throwing a little of that money towards the judges to pay off judges. Yeah, that's happening too. But you've really got to watch who you trust. And I know people are getting desperate, especially with their kids, because listen, it's psychological warfare. What's the first thing they do, Darren? They take the dad out, the protector of the home. And who do they target? Women. All the time. And it's not saying anything weaker. It's just they're more emotional, and that's what they prey on. They have done tons of research and everything else to mess with your feelings, your emotions, make you doubt what you absolutely know. Now, listen, there's nothing wrong with a second glance, if you will. Okay. I'm not against that. Take some time and think it over. Is this really true of this, that? But don't do it in an area of like, oh, you're an idiot. You've got Stockholm syndrome. You didn't see what was going on. You were too close to it. You would have never known. Come on, man. Really? Everybody knows. Anytime anything was ever truly, really going on with that, people knew. There were signs. There were signs within the children. Withdrawal, this, that, several other things. A fluctuation of, we always thought it was funny because that's a grooming tactic that is listed under grooming tactics that Sharon had said under the psychological books and everything else for that stuff to watch for is giving, children gifts. What's the first thing CPS and the CACs do? They flood them with gifts. Here's a t-shirt. Here's a little band that's cool. Here's and look, it's got our name on it. And I mean, this isn't, no. They're buying them food and treats and, here, let me get your kid McDonald's, or every kid should have McDonald's. No, my kid can't have that stuff. We don't believe in that stuff. And they still do it. They don't care. Now you violated my First Amendment rights because that's my freedom of religion and belief. I don't believe in those poisons. And there's people out there that will actually do that. I've seen it come in with tons of fucking McDonald's and other things. It's just pure poison. I wouldn't feed that to my dog type stuff because of the poisons that are in it. But still, people are so addicted to it. There's still, you go to the McDonald's around lunchtime, anywhere just about around the world. Am I right, Darren? It's full around the store and everything's regular. Packed. Because of the dollar menu or this or that, because it's cheap garbage and poison. And if you just realize you spend a little time by just raising your own stuff, it's crazy. Here, talk for a minute. I'm going to show you something.
Yeah, I'm looking through these here. Trying to do, cameras, deem your house on Jesus. Tampering, enforced code. Do you know that penalties are law made by the bill of attainder? I was asking for a friend of mine because the TPR paperwork is being tampered with, not for seeing her kids. Look, I talked about this earlier. It's if a judge has not ruled on you visiting your kids, then there's no stopping your visitation. The judge has to rule on that. You can't, CPS just can't stop your visits from your kids. Now it needs to be ruled on by a judge.
I want to show you guys something. You ever seen these green onions, right? These were picked. This has been trimmed off the top, just the green. Look at the roots. You know what that was done? You can trim a green onion and it will regrow in a glass of water. So it's automatically renewing. Why are you doing that? When you have food that you can do, if you know how to take and do it. Look, that's a brand new stem. Less than a week. Isn't that crazy? And look at the roots. Look at the root ball. This is what I'm talking about that they don't want you to. Look at these roots. Just in water. And that was store-bought stuff. Like I said, organic stuff and everything else.
Imagine you can put that on your head.
Yourself. You can do that with all sorts of things. Cut it off, put it back in the, put it back in the ground. Use this part, bell peppers. Hey, cut around this, use all the bell, leave the seeds in there. What do you do with the seeds? Put them right in the ground. Or soak them in water and let them sprout and then put them in the ground. What? We have now you have an infinite supply of bell peppers. How much do you spend on that you could save, and let alone it's healthier? They don't want you to know this stuff from a glass of water. That's crazy.
Mhm.
You could have little things around your countertop and everything else. Yeah, you
Check
know,
this. There was never a UCCJEA done correctly, and there is a supplemental order missing on the case summary. Ironically, the order was to transition my daughter home. No big deal. Any advice? Now, I would make them flip that paperwork. Make sure that they have that paperwork in line,
oh hell yeah.
because they, you don't let them get away with this stuff. Like that's if you're not saying anything about this, I know that they're transitioning and probably getting your daughter home anyway. Make sure that all of that paperwork is in there. That's your job just as much as your attorney's to make sure that stuff's there. I mean, if they didn't follow, I'm a firm believer that I have a real problem with the UCCJEA. I don't believe that it's a true thing. I know what the history of it is. I know where it is. If anybody could actually find the actual UCCJEA handbook, I would love to see it, because we've yet to be able to find an actual, because it was just the UCCJEA was a committee that was made up off of oh man, I forget where it was built from, but it was split off of oh god, what was the committee? Hold on, let me look. But it split off from some committee back in the 70s or the 60s or something, and that's when they started coming up with that interstate compact stuff or whatever. But I don't believe that it's even a true thing. But as far as your paperwork missing and everything, hold them accountable, make them put it in there for you.
Now,
fall back on you.
Now, Lauren, that's there. We're talking about how they suspended visits and everything else. That is actually a trick that CPS does. They drag you along. You go through their classes. They're pushing for reunification, and then all of a sudden they just suspend it, and then they come under the their excuse is it's not in the best interest of the child. Why? Because when they have the visits, the child doesn't act right at the end of the visits. Well, of course they're not going to fucking act right. You're tearing them away from their biological parent. They're going to act up. Well, they're happier if they don't have the visits. That's when they start pushing for the TPRs and adopting them out. That is the biggest game I have seen in every single state, and that is a textbook maneuver to get your children set up for adoption and into the foster care system. 100%.
And the other thing that they'll do is they do that when they stop your visits, and you'll be surprised. Time is crazy when you're getting this stuff done to you. It's so fast but so slow, if you get what I'm saying. But all of a sudden, before you know it, it's been 6 months. You haven't spoken to your child because they stopped that stuff. Well, guess what they can do then? Now you've abandoned your child. And look into your state laws, what it is, or your state rules and regulations. Because some states are 4 months, some states are 6 months. But if you don't have contact with your child for the period of time, they automatically TPR, or they'll automatically rule TPR on you for abandoning them. And they do that all the time. They did that to me. I didn't even realize that was the thing. Like that they could do that. It was caused by them.
Definitely your court cases too, for the same reasons, because they have a guideline that after it reaches that threshold, like Darren was talking about, now you're able to be entered into that system. And that is the way they designed this to do, is stall till they can qualify to put them in the foster care system and begin their paperwork. As soon as that happens, that's when they got them, and they've done that. And then it's hard as hell to even get them out of that. But that's one of their number one tricks, and that's why they will draw cases out a year or this or that and all the other things. Well, that's not a speedy trial. Now, you're supposed to have things done in so many hours. You're supposed to have a hearing within so many hours after something is filed. That's never done. Oh, well, they have a preliminary hearing to go through a few things, and well, that's not the same thing as your full hearing. No, it has to be done within so many days, and the state's not holding CPS accountable for all those other things. Like I said, it's all going to come crumbling down here soon either way. So, and it's all going to come out, because they ain't going to have no choice, because it's going to come down to either this is going to happen and we're going to make the changes and we're going to go through all this. Otherwise, there is plenty of evidence that we will present. And I'm going to put it out there just clear. We're not ensuing violence. We're not promoting violence. But yes, there is enough evidence within the case that I will present for all 50 cases within this to turn around and say, yes, this is an act of war, and we have the duty and the obligation and the responsibility as we the people to remove those elected and appointed officials and actors, even if it means by force. The Constitution is extremely clear. The Constitution is not on their side. And that's why they fear what the reckoning is doing, because we're coming in educated, knowledge, and with the Constitution. And they hate that.
They hate it. Yes, they do. Yep.
I mean, they started hearing about it, and the rumor coming around, oh, well, what about this reckoning that's going on? And that's that catchphrase word. That's why you use those things and you label them. And one lady I was talking to in New Hampshire, she was on with a bunch of people in New Hampshire that they ended an actual call, like a conference call thing like that, when she started, hey, what are you doing about this? And they were like, what are you talking about? And then they started looking at it and they're like, oh, and they says they just ended it. They don't want to talk to nobody and they've shut it down. That's happened in New Hampshire. That's happened in North Carolina, South Carolina. I'm getting reports back from that. They are aware of what's coming. They know all about the reckoning. They know all about this case. And the thing that bites their ass the most, I don't have to face all 50 states, Darren. I just got to talk about one and show they're part of a national trafficking ring. This is a national issue, and this one state is part of that. There's the basis of it. It's a lot less work, isn't it? And then when you talk about, well, why is it class action? Do you know how much of a pain in the ass a class action lawsuit is? So many people.
And it's so expensive. You have to serve every one of those people and then their people.
And you know who makes the most money? The attorneys.
Yeah, the attorneys. Absolutely.
And then the rule is, in a class action, you must have a federal attorney to represent you in a class action. Yeah. Because they know they're stacking the deck. They're afraid of somebody. Listen, you know what the biggest fear that they have? This whole everything else is that you actually shut the fuck up, get real with yourself and say, I need some fucking knowledge and education, and take your ass back to school and crack some books and do something for yourself and your children and figure this shit out. Talk with people, do this, do that, educate yourself where public education and everything else has failed you. It now falls on you. Educate yourself, get the right knowledge, do your research and everything else to where you can get to the point I can stand in a courtroom and I can articulate my case and stand my own ground to understand everything that has to go through there. And it's not that hard. It's really not, because when you get into the courtroom part, you don't have to deal with all the stuff of this and that. You have to understand what objections are. You have to understand, the subject matters you're going, objection, Your Honor. No, it goes to the credibility of the witness. No, it goes to the facts of the matter, Your Honor. Or you just tell Your Honor, hey, if you allow me a little time, a little latitude, it will be very clear and apparent what we're going after. And, the judge will usually let you, and listen, you get a lot of flexibility that when you do pro se sui juris that you don't as an attorney. Matter of fact, Darren was telling me about, what was that you were telling me about with that you can, there's a filing that's even for that, for cases like that, for latitude on federal cases.
God, Jesus Christ, I don't remember the name of it right this second.
Well,
but there is, yes, you get all kinds of lenience, not all kinds, but they definitely will work with you. But like Gunnar said, the dates and the way that the court structure is stays as is. You don't get leniency there. But
objection, sustained.
You're following, right? You have to do briefs or this or that. They definitely will work with you on those formalities. But you've got to know, the way things are written, the way things are done, like those things they won't excuse you on.
And stop making excuses. I don't know. I'm too old. I'm too this and that. You know what? That's bullshit. Because let me tell you something. If you're not learning something new every day, you just crawl into the fucking grave, because you're not doing anybody any good. You should learn something every day new throughout the entire part of your life for several reasons. One, it betters yourself. Two, it takes in, it keeps your mind sharp, and that you're constantly understanding, you're growing and expanding your mind. You should know this is the problem. The way the Constitution and everything was set up was for the average person to go into a federal court and articulate or argue your case before the court. Everyone, every citizen, every person that votes. Oh yeah, every person that votes should know how to do that. But we don't. And then I hear 1,000 excuses, and then you get, just, well, can you do it for? Nope, I'm not. I'm not a lawyer. There's the other thing. I will point you in the right direction 1,000 times, but I'll be the first one to tell you, I am not an advocate. I am not an attorney, and this is where we're at, and this is what we're doing. Either get on board or get the fuck out of the way, because I don't have time, because this is war we're going into, and I'm not bringing people and understanding, well, aren't you going to do this? No, you know who's going in there? Me and my wife. And then if we get somebody to represent the kids, which we're hoping somebody will get, we can trust to get, a proper law license and everything else, then yeah, we'll have those things in there. Then we'll have that conversation. But I don't need some other educated person to come through and explain something to me and then look at you, well, he doesn't know this, that. Watch me turn the tables and suck all your authority out of everything and get your puffiness. Why? Because we are the government. Articulate that on the record. You now have the power.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the government. You work for me. You answer to me. You're an elected or appointed official. You have to answer to me. The people. We, the people, are the government. We don't have a democracy. We have a constitutional republic. And you articulated that's how you're going to present your case. And you go on the record. You've just changed everything. But you've got to know how to do these things. Get in there, dig those books. It's not going to law school. It's not doing all these other things. Learn some of the basics and a little common sense, to believe it or not. Am I wrong in saying that, Darren? A little common sense goes a whole fucking long way.
Sure does.
Shit.
Sure does, man. It's not rocket science. It really not.
I can do rocket science, quadratic equations, I can do that shit, but whatever, everybody's different. Quantum physics and all the other things. There's several other, okay, I comprehend it and use a little common sense. But once again, as they say, common sense ain't so common anymore.
No.
Because they stole that from us, because that was our weapon against tyranny.
That's why they made the Constitution so simple, so that all of us could use it, understand it, and be able to move our ways around it, so that we could fight them when they came onto us like this.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of the Constitution. It's not perfect, but it's flexible enough to adapt with the changes in culture, society, and science, and to be applicable and to modify it as needed, so long as the basis premise of those foundational things of the Bill of Rights is still intact.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the beauty of our Constitution. Even though the president can drop as many bombs as he wants, or you think he has an ultimate power like a king, well, that's what the power of Congress comes in. You can declare war for, 45 days? The president can? I think it's 45 days or something like that. And after that, it has to go to Congress. He doesn't have any more power after that. And we've got to understand the power and the way the checks and balances and the beauty of our Constitution was written, that it was imperfect. They were a bunch of pompous farmers and people looking to a new world and looking for new opportunity for business and land, because England was getting so overcrowded, and it was getting so overcrowded that they were shipping. A lot of people turns around and says, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Long day after that show yesterday, from some of the things I had to. That was rough.
Well, it's all right, Gunnar. We've gone 2 hours. I think we can call it. I think
that's enough for everybody. All right. Well, I guess wrap it up. Final words are: get off your ass, crack open a book, turn off the fucking TV, put the thing down, and everything else. Shows like this are good for you. They're informational, this and that. That's what you need to be going into. That's where you need to be reading. That's where you need to listen to what we're doing, pointing you in the right direction. There's nothing wrong with asking a question. You guys can put it usually on my Facebook page. You can email Darren. It's at the bottom of the screen, coming across right now, cpshuntingjustice@gmail. We'll be more than happy to educate you and understand this is for educational purposes only, or point you in the right direction. But you gotta know your damn rights to even exercise them. Know your rights. Get off your butt, turn off all the stuff, and get your nose back in a book or in a Kindle or something, and start educating your damn self. Quit letting everybody else. Listen, are you able to poop? Learn to wipe your own ass.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Sorry.
I like that.
It's cruel,
Yeah, that's real.
but it's true. You poop, learn to wipe your own ass. You're an adult, right?
Yep,
Wipe
you
your
sure
own
are. Yep. There you go. I'm gonna go with Gunner on that one, not with the wipe your own ass one, but the get the Constitution, get yourself a copy of the Constitution, both state and your state constitution, as well as your, the main constitution that we have, your Bill of Rights, all of that stuff. Go online, look up guys like David Straight. Watch his videos, and I'm looking for the guy's name right now. There's a little old man that explains the Constitution, and he speaks really fast. I forget the guy's name. I'm trying to look for it right now. Oh, the old
guy with the cap all the time.
Yeah. You know the guy.
Cool as hell.
Oh man, what the hell is his name? Little guy with head.
Yeah, he's the one. I will not participate in any tips, tricks, or anything else. This is the thing. Yeah, that dude's got a ton of YouTube stuff, and that dude is filled with knowledge. Tons of. I love watching him.
Yeah, I used to have him here. I mean, he explains that through and through the Constitution. Look for him. He's a little old guy. God damn it! I wish I could find him right now. I'll keep looking. So tomorrow night's show, I'll have the name for you guys. So keep that on wraps. But get in, learn the Constitution, because I mean, without the education, there's nothing you can do to help your kids right now. There's not a damn thing that you can do if you don't even know what your rights are. You can't tell people what their rights are, and your kids are just as many rights as you do. So just educate yourself, guys. So, all right, guys, we'll catch you all tomorrow night, same time, same place. These kittens are killing me. Until then, if I could turn this on, that would be great. There we go. Boom, boom. You guys have a good night. And Gunner, I'll be with you in just a second.
Roger that.
All right, everybody, have a good night.
Let's go. The world getting crazy, baby, chill. Don't medicate, just meditate. You waking up now, well, baby, you hella late. Educate, look at what's going on, let it resonate, accelerate. Find your inner hunger like you never ate. Agenda is to push the hate. Separate and segregate, don't celebrate. Quite yet the storm is coming, cue for heaven's sake. Violence that they demonstrate, instigate and penetrate the values of our country, and our God is what they desecrate. My fighters ain't no featherweight, pulling out the seams of the fabric that they fabricate. They feed us lies, manipulate, intimidate through fear and force, forcing us to sit and wait till we come together, congregate. Then we liberate, praying that you give me strength to find some love amongst the hate. Marching on the streets of blood till I see the golden gates. Troubadour, troubled souls, one of God's servants. Blades out, cut the grass till we see the serpent.
One day I hope you see the truth. This puppet show, it stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. We need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now.
I know the truth is hard to swallow, just digest it. Suspected something's going on. chose to just neglect it, deflected by some breaking news. Oh, we just accepted, expected just to fall in line and follow their perspective. Don't question their objective, but I got a lot of questions. How these kids molested, but nobody's been arrested. Read it in the testament, these children are protected. So I'm fighting all these terrorists, both foreign and domestic. Refuse to be directed, lying not a sheep. Only kneel to my God, so I'm dying on my feet. Silence when we speak, but there's violence in the street. I've been rolling with the punches, I can't take it on the cheap. Drink from a glass half full, I'm optimistic. People are sadistic, so vicious and malicious. Praying for assistance to overcome opposition, or I'm gonna start resisting, and then I pray for forgiveness.
One day I hope you see the truth. This puppet show, it stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. We need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now. We need you now. We need you now. One day, one day, one day, I hope you see the truth. This puppet show, it stays on because of you fools. We've been dancing with the devil way too long. I know it's fun, but get ready to pay your dues. Oh God, come back home. This crazy world is filled with liars and abusers. We need you now before we're too far gone. I hope one day they finally see the truth. God, we need you now.
Imagine a quiet evening at home with your family. Safe, happy. Then a knock at the door. Strangers from Child Protective Services stand outside. Your heart pounds. This can't be happening. But it is. In a moment, everything changes. They make vague accusations. You try to explain, but it's like talking to a wall. They have the power. You feel helpless. Your rights seem to vanish. They claim to protect your children, but from you? The system meant to shield the vulnerable can become a terrifying force. In an instant, your children are taken. Confused, scared, they cling to you. The strangers are firm. Your children are ripped from your arms. Tears stream down their faces, and yours. The trauma is deep, a wound that may never heal. This isn't rare. It's a growing crisis. Good, loving families are being shattered. Children are taken, often with little due process. Why is this happening? What's really going on behind closed doors? Across America, families live in fear of a knock that could change everything. The system's power is immense, and its mistakes devastating. We need to understand the forces at work. We need to ask hard questions, because every family deserves safety, not fear. The stakes are too high to ignore. This is not just a nightmare for a few. It's a crisis for us all. The question is, will we look away or demand answers? The future of countless families depends on what we do next. The time to pay attention is now. Every minute, a child is seized by CPS in America. 60 children every hour, over 1,400 every day. The scale is staggering. an epidemic. Are there truly that many homes where children are in danger? Or is something else driving these numbers? We see headlines about horrific abuse. Those children need help. But what about the others? This constant removal creates fear. Parents worry? Will a teacher misunderstand a bruise? Will a neighbor make a false report? Trust between families and child protection agencies erodes. When the system is seen as a threat, not a support, who benefits? Not the children caught in the middle. Such numbers point to something systemic. This isn't just about caseworkers making tough calls. There's a machine at work, one that needs to be fed. We must ask, what is fueling this crisis? Could money be a factor? The Adoption and Safe Families Act of 1997 and Title IV-E of the Social Security Act provide federal funding to states for foster care and adoption. States receive money for each child in foster care and bonuses for adoptions. The more children removed, the more federal dollars flow in. It's a powerful incentive, a financial reward for taking a child, a bonus for finalizing an adoption. This can turn children into commodities, sources of revenue. The focus shifts from family preservation to child removal, because removal pays. When you follow the money, the picture becomes clearer. The system is designed to prioritize financial gain over family well-being. When agencies are incentivized to remove children, can we trust every removal is necessary? Are children being protected or monetized? This is the hidden crisis we must expose. The stakes are too high to ignore. We assume CPS intervenes only in severe abuse cases. But what if the net is cast wider? Disturbing claims suggest agencies target healthy, well-adjusted children. Why? Because they're more adoptable, easier to place, quicker to generate bonuses. A child's good health can make them a target. The very qualities parents nurture can put children at risk. These children are low-hanging fruit for an overburdened system. It's a brutal calculus. Innocence has a price. Parents doing a good job, raising bright, healthy kids, can be targeted. Not because the children are in danger, but because they're desirable to a system driven by incentives. The truly difficult cases require more resources that are scarce. The system's logic is chilling. We must question who the system is really serving, and who is being left behind. This isn't just someone else's problem. It could happen to your family, your friends, your neighbors. A misunderstanding, a false report, and your world changes. We cannot look away. If we stay silent, the system will keep operating in the shadows. Families will be torn apart, children traumatized. Financial incentives will keep driving the wedge. We must demand transparency and accountability in child protective services. Reform laws like Title IV-E and ASFA that create perverse incentives. Support family preservation. Ensure child welfare agencies focus on children's well-being, not profit. Speak up for those who can't speak for themselves. Protecting children is noble, but not if the system causes harm. Families must be supported, not destroyed. The time to act is now, before another child is needlessly taken, because if it can happen to them, it can happen to you. What will you do?
Our courts are contaminated with young, inexperienced caseworkers and polluted with bribes, high-priced bonuses for speedy adoption of terminated parents, and judges who don't practice law with the Constitution in their sights. This is a problem.
They take away the fathers, leaving just a mom and cubs. They know that with dad out the way, the better things will go. Breaking apart the family, destroying the American way. Our legacy is built upon our families of yesterday. Fuck CPS, fuck what they doing. Fuck CPS, they need to be ruined. It's all about the division of family services. You hear that the division is what they about. They prey upon the family, the ones that the dad's been kicked out. We can't stand for this abomination. This is the song that needs to play across our once great nation, making us aware of the problem. Stealing our kids, it's not mama drama. Stand up for those who are lost to them. We need to fight for the family, making America great again.
CPS comes along with the mission to protect. The only thing they are doing is cashing in those checks, paid for by the souls of the children, diagnosed by a caseworker who is still a baby herself. They take away the fathers, leaving just the mom and cubs. They know that with dad out the way, the better things will go. Breaking apart the family, destroying the American way. Our legacy is built upon our families of yesterday. Fuck CPS, fuck CPS, fuck what they doing. Fuck CPS, they need to be ruined. It's all about the division of family services. You hear the division, that's what they about. They prey upon the family, the ones that the dad's been kicked out. We can't stand for this abomination. This is the song that needs to play across our once great nation, making us aware of the problem, stealing our kids. It's not mama drama. Stand up for those who are lost due to them. We need to fight for the family, making America great again.